Hey everybody, how's it going? And welcome back to Reading in the Dark. Byron here, cheers. Not sure why I said it that way, but this is my end of the year book tag video. I was not tagged by anyone. I have thereby tagged myself. I'm enjoying a lovely glass of Old Vine Zinfandel. Peppery and smoky. I'm just kidding. Okay, so this is my end of the year book tag. I saw Chelsea Dolling's video a couple days ago, I think, doing this tag, and I thought it was kind of cool. And I realized that it was actually a good idea for me because I need to think about wrapping up my reading for the year now that I'm kind of back and thinking about my reading for the next year. So there are a series of questions, 6 questions, just gonna adjust. There are a series of questions. I feel like it's bright. It's the same. Okay, there are a series of 6 questions. I'm having issues with hair. This like edge right here, but hopefully the green screen is cutting off those hairs anyway. So there's 6 questions on the end of the year book tag. And the first question is, are there any books you started this year, but that you still need to finish? No, there aren't any. Okay, so there's 3 books that I'm in the middle of reading right now. Dracula by Bram Stoker, although I've read it before. It's a reread, and I love it, and I'm having a great time, but I just took a month off reading, so I'm not done, and I have to finish that. The Wild Inside by Christine Carbeau. This tells the story of a man who is investigating a very grisly, shall we say, murder in Glacier National Park, and he has a scary backstory of the fact that his father was mauled to death by a grizzly bear when he was a little boy. So he's bringing baggage to the situation. And it's a fascinating book, but it was just not what I was in the mood for when I started reading it a month or 2 ago, and I put it aside, and I'm gonna finish that soon. The third book that I am in the middle of right now is The Persian Boy by Mary Renault, which is the second book in a trilogy by Mary Renault, which tells the story of Alexander the Great. And The Persian Boy tells the story of a young boy who is enslaved and cut and made into a eunuch and sold to be basically an entertainer, shall we say, / slave for Alexander the Great. And his perspective on, I guess it's kind of the middle years of Alexander's reign, maybe the early years, actually. There's 3 books, and then the third book in the trilogy is called Fire from Heaven, and that's another book that I have to read this year because I just want to finish the trilogy in 2018. The second question is, do you have an autumnal book to transition into the end of the year? I like the word autumnal. I feel like that sounds pretty fancy, so I'm going to say autumnal one more time. Autumnal. Well, really, that's Dracula. I kind of take this question to mean, is there a book that you've read before that you always read that you like to read, as in something this is a repeating thing? And Dracula is one of the only books that I've ever reread. But also, and it is what I'm reading right now in this period of time, which, was during Halloween and then in November and now into December, partially because it's long and partially because I was in a reading slump.
The great reading crash of 2018.
It actually is the perfect transitionary book. It's gothic, it's an epistolary novel, and it sort of has that old school classics vibe, but it also ends in a very wintry, snowy landscape. So that kind of can bring you into the wintry vibe because of, snow. That's really my only autumnal book or transitionary. I can think of lots of fall-ish books, but I wouldn't consider them transitionary. That book is sort of Victorian in a way, and so it sort of puts me in mind of things like Christmas Carol and stuff, so I do think of it as transitionary, and there's the snow, so there's my long-winded answer. Is there a new release that you're still waiting for? So I don't follow a lot of authors. My favorite thriller writer is Tess Gerritsen, and she's not talking about what her next book is yet on her blog or anything, so I have no idea what it is or when it's coming out. So, yeah, there's always new books coming out in the Star Trek tie-in books, and I really enjoyed the first Star Trek Discovery novel called... It's very confusing because I think the first book in that series is called Desperate Hours, and the second book is called Drastic Measures or something, and these titles are far too similar. The book that I am going to mention is an anthology of science fiction written by authors of color, and it is called New Suns. This collection gets its title from a quote from Octavia E. Butler. "There's nothing new under the sun, but there are new suns," which is a cool quote, and it's a great idea for a title for an anthology. And again, this is an anthology of science fiction and fantasy short stories by authors of color. I'm really interested in this because I love science fiction anthologies. I also, the editor of this anthology, Nisi Shaw, is a friend of one of my very best friends. And another one of her friends, Jamie Go. Jamie Go has a story in this called The Freedom of the Shifting Seas. The Freedom of the Shifting Sea is sort of like a allegorical take on The Mermaid's Tale, and it sounds fascinating. And so I'm very excited to read that collection. The other book that I guess I could technically say that I'm looking forward to kind of is, and I'm being very negative, and so I should probably be more optimistic, is the third book in a thriller trilogy by Rachel Kane. I read the first book, which is Still House Lake, for Thriller-a-thon, and I thought it was okay. I thought some of the dialogue was really weak, and I thought the story itself, the setup was kind of cliched, but it did hold my interest, and I enjoyed reading it. It's a planned trilogy. The third book has actually been delayed. It was supposed to be out, I think, this month, and I think it was supposed to be out in December of 2018, and it's been delayed until March 2019. The second book is called Kilman Creek, and I haven't read that yet. I think I own it because they were both on sale as a bundle, and I'm going to read that. And then, of course, in March, I'm going to want to read the conclusion, which is going to be called Wolf Hunter River. All the different bodies of water, you guys. They're dangerous places, and you can get murdered if you hang out next to them, apparently, so be careful with that. I'm being kind of a dick. I didn't hate the first book. I just didn't think it was fantastic. But in any case, I own the second book, and I'm going to read it. So with the third book coming out, technically, I guess you could say I'm looking forward to that as well. So Wolf Hunter River. The fourth question in this end of the year book tag is, what are 3 books you want to read before the end of the year? And I'm going to have to take a drink before I answer that. I've put down more than 3. First of all, Funeral Games by Mary Renault, because it's the third book in the trilogy that I will have read the first 2 of. And it's already planned, and I absolutely have to read it. I'm going to read that and finish that trilogy. And then I'll probably do like a wrap-up video for that trilogy. It is a beautiful historical fiction world. Mary Renault is amazing. The Abyss, a novelization by Orson Scott Card. I have it on paperback. It's rare-ish. It's not like super well-known. It came out the same time as the movie, and I thought it was really neat that James Cameron enlisted a legit sci-fi author to flesh out the story further than he was able to do in the screenplay, obviously because movies have a time limit. And my understanding is that it completely aligns with the film, but just adds to it. And it's really interesting because they came out at the same time. So a friend of mine recommended it to me, and I bought it on Amazon. I think I've had it since March. And so I have to read it before the end of the year because I just feel like I can't own a book for more than a year without having read it. And then the third book that I hope to get to is one that I'm really excited about, and I was just recently reading something about, and that is The Ragged Edge of Night by Olivia Hawker. I chose this in one of my favorites videos as my book with my favorite cover on it, because it does have a lovely cover. It's set during World War II and the Holocaust, and I understand there's some sort of tie-in with current American politics, which is, So I'm going to enjoy that book. I'm putting a lot of pressure on this book, but I just am almost positive I'm going to love it. And I feel like I have to read that book before the end of the year because I've been just itching to get to it for so long. And I'm also definitely going to read A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens because I've read it the last 2 years, and it's something that you read in a day. It's not long. It's maybe 100 pages. I don't know. I love reading it because it is scary. It's a ghost story. It's spooky. It's fun. And it's very gothic and all of that supernaturalness, but it also, it has a lot of the same dialogue that you hear in all of the best adaptations. They always lift sentences and phrases from him. To say that Scrooge was not startled would be untrue. And so it's really fun to read a lot of that language that I recognize from all the different adaptations, but then to just get all of it and not to have the truncated version. He's just a funny writer, and I think it's a lighthearted thing for Dickens compared to some of his other stuff, which I have not finished any of, but I have read parts of. Things like Bleak House. Christmas Carol is a more lighthearted piece of his. And I loved reading it the first time, so I read it the second time, and I just read it every year now. And it's a really fun time. I recommend anybody who hasn't read A Christmas Carol, totally read it. Read it on Christmas Eve. It is a really good time. So in addition to that, what I'm interested in possibly picking up is Bracebridge Hall by Washington Irving. Bracebridge Hall was mentioned in a documentary about the history of Christmas on a documentary on the History Channel, and it talked about it was sort of like one of the first times that someone put down this idealized image of English country life and this idea of the different classes intermingling happily and the way they celebrate Christmas, and it's just so lovely and idyllic and sweet. Charles Dickens mentioned that this series of little vignettes that is Bracebridge Hall actually inspired him to write A Christmas Carol and that he loves it. And it's just apparently the most Christmassy thing. It's also rather short. I think it's like 135 pages or something. So I may read that too if I have time, but that's enough. Right now it is December 1st, and I think I'm probably editing this tomorrow and posting it on the 2nd. So like I only have 29 days. Is there a book you think could still shock you and become your favorite book of the year? If I'm gonna answer a question about is there a book that I think could like usurp or unseat my favorite book, that means I need to have a favorite book. And I hadn't really thought about it, so I did think about it, and I was able to create a sort of like a long list and a short list for my favorite books for the year. So I have a favorite book in 2018. Because I'm gonna do like a yearly wrap up, I'm not gonna tell you what my favorite is at this time. But if you look through my prior videos, you possibly have a clue. There is a book that I think could unseat my favorite book of the year. And these are both books that were published in 2018. And that book is The Ragged Edge of Night by Olivia Hawker. I don't know why. I love historical fiction. I like the fact that the author is coming at it from at least sideways through the lens of like modern politics. I think that's great. And it has a beautiful cover, and I love the title, and I just am very optimistic about it. It's one of two books about that period of time that I'm interested in reading. The other one being White Rose, Black Forest. Gonna definitely get to The Ragged Edge of Night, and that book could become my favorite. We'll find out together, hopefully soon. The final question in the end of the year book tag is, have you already started making reading plans for 2019? And of course the answer is yes. I have so many books that I have purchased that I have not read yet. Most of them were like ebooks that were on sale only that day, and I looked at the synopsis and I thought, oh, that looks, moderately interesting to me. I'm gonna buy it because it's only on sale today, and I need to get through as many of those as possible. But in terms of a more specific goal, my idea for 2019 is to read more fantasy. So I have an entire trilogy that I purchased that I haven't touched yet by Ronald Domingue. Starting with a book called The Map Maker's War. It just sounds like a fascinating world. So I want to read more fantasy. That trilogy is going to be one of the first things that I try to pick up. I also think this might be the year for me to finally read Harry Potter. I know, I've never read a single Harry Potter book. I've seen some of the movies. I think I tried to read the first page of the first Harry Potter book once, and I was like, this is boring, I don't like it, and I put it away, which is stupid. So everybody looks at me like I'm crazy when I say I haven't read them yet, especially since they know I read so much. So I'm gonna read it this year. I know it's supposed to be like a Christmas time thing, but sorry, I have other things to read in December, so that's not happening, but I will read it in 2019. That is I hand to God, I'm going to read the Harry Potter stuff. I mean, unless of course I hate it, but I doubt that. But I'm gonna read it all 7 books in 2019. I promise I will. I own the first one on hardcover and I own the last one on hardcover. Don't ask. It was like they were gifts from people. And I'll just have to buy them. And having had the surprisingly great time that I had reading A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, I am very excited to read the new George R.R. Martin book that is a prequel to Song of Ice and Fire, and the book is called Blood and Fire. These titles are very original. I was just watching a YouTube video where somebody was just doing a spoiler-free, release day flip-through of the book. It's got beautiful illustrations in it. It's really long. It's like 700 pages. It looks beautiful. It looks fascinating. I love the Targaryens, and the fact that he wrote like a chunkery book all about the Targaryens brings me joy. So that's going to happen. And then assuming that I enjoy that, I don't know, maybe I will find my way to reading the Song of Ice and Fire in 2019. I don't know. But I do want to read more fantasy. That's my main goal, is to give that a shot and see what happens. The Mapmaker's War trilogy, George R.R. Martin, Harry Potter, that's kind of like my main goal going forward in 2019, in addition to trying to read as much of the books that I already own as possible. And that's my end of the year book tag. And I kind of can't believe that I got through all of that, and it's only been maybe 20 minutes of me recording. So, incredible. Thank you for sitting through all of this. I think I enjoy making videos a little bit more now that I allow myself to have a glass of wine in hand while I film them. There could be a drinking game where every time Byron goes, you drink? Isn't it weird when people talk about themselves in the third person? Anyway, that's my video. That's my end of the year book tag. I kind of can't believe I got through it so quickly. I think I've only been filming for maybe 20 minutes, which is amazing. I will do a yearly wrap up, of course, and in that I will talk about my top 10 favorite books of the year. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting me by watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to hit that like button. And if you loved it and if you'd like to see more content like this, hit the subscribe button. I would love to have more subscribers. You guys are awesome. I hope everybody's having a wonderful beginning of December. And until next time, I will be here in the dark reading. Bye, guys, and cheers.